Welcome, everyone. I hope you can hear me right. So as Andrew has already introduced me, let me introduce my guest here, Robert from STAUFF. He's the global e-commerce specialist at STAUFF. He's actually the key driver behind a lot of AI initiatives at STAUFF. He's not just exploring these initiatives and use cases, but he is also heavily invested in the execution of these use cases.
Exactly. So thank you for the introduction. And just briefly about my role at STAUFF and myself, how I came to AI as a whole. So like in 2011, the first AI thing was presented to me. And from that point on, like AI never really became big, and it just became big 5-6 years ago, as we know it, as a trend. And from that point on, yeah, I was like a bit more hyped. Finally, I can get to some things and discuss things in companies. And I'm at STAUFF now for 1.5 years and driving, as Carl already told, AI forward as a AI driver, if you want to call it like that. I'm on a global team and a global role. So there is like a lot of coordination necessary to be able to leverage AI at STAUFF.
Perfect, thank you. So what follows is going to be actually a depiction of a real hands-on approach that resulted in literally very high impact. I think you're going to mention some numbers later. This is also why I find this talk so exciting. So we're also going to try to go a bit deeper in our talk, not stay really on a superficial level, but literally explain you how these use cases have been developed and in the end also implemented. Before I go into the interview, I just want to do a quick jump back into what we at Spryker do about AI. Our approach to AI has 3 different pillars at the moment. The first one is the one that I've already mentioned this morning. We're trying to, from now on, enable our customers to deploy AI in their projects and to get working with it. The second one is, and we have done this since the last couple of years, we have already introduced AI capabilities in our product. They do not reside in the core product, but in what we call the Innovation Lab. If anybody is interested in these things, feel free to contact me after the talk. And our third pillar is, maybe you have heard about the speech or talk from my colleague Alex Galish. We are heavily invested into looking how AI can also accelerate developer productivity. So all these 3 pillars, I think, will also appear in our talk now. So yeah, without further ado, let's go into what you have actually done. Let's actually start with you, how you got into AI on a private side, and then maybe shift over to what STAUFF is doing today.
Awesome. So as I said, I think 2011, not to pinpoint the true year there, I've been involved in a computer vision project. So it means just on a surface level to have cameras on the bottom of trains to analyze tracks and find cracks. So really like image recognition, computer vision, as I told. And from that point on, like I said, hey, AI became some like afterthought in my career. And with the upcoming ChatGPT and everyone else, all the companies, I finally got my hand on the drawer again and could pick it out again for myself. And actually, in my private life, as an AI hobbyist, if you want to phrase it like that, a colleague of me or a friend of mine came up with the idea, hey, let's get an infinite money glitch going, like let's get into sports betting and try out AI, how can we handle certain data points. So we looked back at some like sports clubs and all the I don't want to advertise someone, but we tried to get a lot of data points for that. So long story short, we trained our own AI and tuned up parameters, whatever. In the end, it was quite successful, but only for a very short period of time, because of course you can statistically determine non-human behavior without even interacting, having a bot interacting in the platform. But yeah, in the end, 50 euros, we made 50 euros, so not really a great story to talk about in that regard. Could have been more successful, but yeah. So that's the hobbyist approach that I got into. But also so that's really you get some insights into AI, how it works, how the inner workings are behaving, what are the limitations, what data is to be expected. There are some studies, hey, you need at least, so one single training data point is 30% of the time is the end result, 70% of the time AI doesn't get it. So a lot of things to consider and a lot of limitation in the technology, but nevertheless, we all talk about it, we all hear about that oftentimes. And to bridge the gap to STAUFF, my role is to be, as you read, I'm a global e-commerce manager, right? What do I have to do with AI? Yeah, we all have to do something with AI, or we are trying to do. And as you can imagine, so STAUFF is a global leader in B2B hydraulic components. So you can imagine there's some legacy to it, because now we have 70 years of history, if I'm not mistaken. And so that means legacy in terms of data. That's the AI trenches, I would call them. So very hard and painful work to get what the guy from the Greek store just told. We have to get through a lot of very cumbersome and painful things to be AI ready. And my approach to that is very, very lean and try to be as productive and as instant as possible, producing demos, for example, via vibe coding. Why not? It does not really matter. You need to have a vision for what you want to achieve, and we can then, of course, talk about the exact cases that I brought with me. These are 2 cases out of 6 we are currently looking into. You heard earlier today that a lot of companies are actually implementing AI cases. So I think 70% of companies are using AI already or having an AI case. And at STAUFF, we really run or trying to run 2 roads at the same time. So I'm part of a 2-person team. So we are a duo at a global level to get AI into the company. We don't want to force it. That's not the goal here. We want to create value, right? My role description is, hey, either revenue, efficiency, or growth has to be saved or has to be gotten. That's the success of my role. So I'm really getting into that. And the 2 roads we are following is the first road, personal productivity. That means Copilot or ChatGPT, whatever. A lot of people are using that as a shadow solution, so sometimes maybe not allowed by the company, or a lot of companies allow that. So there's this road. My colleague is doing that, the personal productivity, hey, and get your colleagues to understand AI. How can I talk to the chatbot? How can I work with it? Of course. And the second road is my road to explore AI use cases and to generate them, or to empathize and to talk to other colleagues and people at STAUFF, mainly domain experts, people that create content on a global scale. They need to understand how can AI help me, or how does it not? Because that's also an option, of course. As we heard today, there's some pessimistic and some optimists and a lot of things in between. And to me, it's just a tool that I need to use. And the approach at STAUFF is maybe the same or comparable to automation. You need to have a discovery phase. You need to be able to, as you can see on the loop, you're starting with a discovery phase at STAUFF. We are starting with a discovery phase. So as I said, there are domain experts that I'm talking to, and they give me the gist of like how their idea could work. And we go over to selecting cases. So of course, first determine, is it pattern-based or is it like not AI solution or is it an AI solution? And afterwards, you can then, or in my role, I go ahead and prototype something. Just as a small story for that, what does prototyping mean in my regard? I'm not a developer by any means, and I think some developers might want to hit me afterwards, but yeah, I like to vibe code. And vibe coding, I think, can be embraced in this prototyping phase so that you get a demo out as soon as possible. For example, I just came here by train, and while I was in the train, I had a colleague from Brazil telling me, hey, we want to enrich companies in Brazil. They have a different ERP, they have so not close to my infrastructure that I know in Germany, for example. And what I did is then I've just vibe coded some like API, Brazilian API, which I never heard of, which I don't know about. And I had a result in like 4 hours or something like that. And this result was really impressive to her. So I want to emphasize the point prototyping for you, because it really is a chance. If you are in a project manager or a product owner role, then you can go ahead and bridge a lot of the gaps. You don't need to be a developer in that regard. You can, of course, developers, the step afterwards, so choosing and integrating. Integration is where your developers or external forces come into play. But you can be the driver. You can be the like validator. Is it really usable? Can we try it out? Can we generate value? And yeah, afterwards you then can integrate it fully into your infrastructure. It becomes a bigger project. But in my opinion, having this like very rapid approach, so this is like a day of work or maybe a week if it's complex, is very beneficial to all of this timeline and all of this process.
Thank you, Robert. I think that's a very hands-on process, and to me it looks pretty much like textbook. So let's jump ahead and go into our first use case. Could you please start by explaining what was actually the business problem you were trying to solve here, and especially also highlight why has AI been the right solution approach or the tool that you use to solve this problem or challenge? Because as you mentioned before, you're always evaluating whether you're going to tackle a problem with AI or not, which is something very important for everyone to take into consideration.
So, as you can hopefully see on the next slide, this is like the overall approach. And as I said, it's super lean. So this is, with leanness, you get the risk of, hey, it's not fully into built into our infrastructure. What I mean by that, so what we actually did, or I did, was for the first case, AI category information. So we have like 13 stores all around the world. STAUFF is active globally, and we are selling in our e-commerce stores globally. So also decentralized infrastructure. That means we have several Spryker instances. And what is then my first idea? Like, hey, before I go to each and every system and collect some data and get some exports and whatever, I just crawl my own page. So just have a crawler running on your own store to get the information you need for this case. Was the first thing I did, and determining what context I have to give AI to be able to generate the value we need. So what we did is we had categories that were insufficient in like length, so length of visible description, length of visible title, length of meta title, length of meta description. Also like invalid or too short or whatever. There's rules for that. That's why this little icon on the bottom you can see there. This rule set was something we came up with. So I talked to the domain expert, which was or is still a content creator, a global content creator for us. And she told me, hey, for SEO, you need like 65 characters of meta title, like 170, some artificial numbers set by Google's SERP feature or search page. And all these rules then are defined. And all the information is then saved as well, so imported into a CSV file, whatever. It's really, we don't have to be very sophisticated in that, because for me it's nearly a one-time job, right? Because we don't create product categories all the time, every day. It's just a job for maybe once a year. So the approach was that to not putting this into the whole infrastructure, like having a module for Spryker or something like developed, because that's then like a lot of.
So where did you let it run, the models?
The models are actually, this case is run via API. So in that regard, we used Grok actually, which still does not have the best image, but it is a very humane. So what we did beforehand, again with the domain expert, was to test out several models. Right, there are DeepSeek, ChatGPT, whatever, a lot of competing LLMs, and we tried out all of them with the same prompt to get an understanding. Hey, which fits our case the best? Which is resulting in somewhat human-like information, and we determined that Grok is actually the best for this case. And then we, after we applied these rules and we implemented Grok via API, we just had multiple runs. So you can imagine that AI does not like to be like restrained. It's of course like limitations. You get the strawberry 7 hours, 5 hours, whatever analogy, and you need to be able to have a like brute, or we did a brute force approach, so that we limit AI to these characters. If AI is wrong, then we try again. So we had in the first run we had 75% of success. In the last run, we had actually 99.8% of success. And in the end, of course, then importing into Spryker again, and so on and so forth. As for why this has a huge impact, we saved approximately 200,000 euros in content creation and in translation. So for us, like 1,100 categories for 13 RSUs, so 13 countries in 7 languages, I think. So you can imagine it's like 2 million words, something like that. And we saved a vast amount of money on that, which really is like, hey, this is a case or we developed in some weeks. So the import was maybe and rules definition was maybe the longest timeline or the longest effort, the most effort. So that's really was promising to us, and a great case to implement.
Thank you. I find this extremely impressive, the amount of money that you have actually saved by deploying AI in such a, let's say, pragmatic and simple way. So let's move on to the next use case. This time you aimed at enhancing the customer experience. Can you tell us what was the business problem that you were trying to solve here?
So actually, full disclaimer here, this AI case is not live yet, but it has, like, if you reimagine the loop we had, it is now like a bit stuck at policy and like German ruling. So yeah, to get the story across, we came up with, or it is for a long time, a lot of people talked about, hey, how can we transfer knowledge or questions? We answer questions on a daily basis in customer service, for example, or in sales. How can we approach these questions? How can we get them out and get them into a database or something like that? You know that a lot of people in your company are like knowledge leaders or have silos in terms of unique wisdom, unique knowledge. And for a company, it is super valuable to be able to funnel this wisdom and this knowledge into actual data. And what we came up with is to have conversations converted into structured data. That is like the main headline, if you want to phrase it like that, for this case. So what does it mean in reality? We took 100 conversations, and first of all, yeah, conversations are very tricky, of course. As I said, German policies and German rulings, you don't want to tap into the wrong things. So, as for example, you don't want to send them just barebone to OpenAI, hey, I don't give a So you want to get rid of a lot of the private data and also order-related data in these conversations, because there are customers that had 15, there's a trail of 15 emails in a row. Hey, is this product suitable for me? Does this require some installation process? Whatever. You can name it, you can call it. And if you read these questions and answers, maybe most of you, like STAUFF, is a bit more hydraulic components, maybe not the easiest to get into niche. And you can see that a lot of these informations can be distilled out of these conversations, lengthy conversations that have data in them that shouldn't be shown actually on the page. So what we did is I on my local machine just ran Olama, so does not really matter, the model, but I ran on a local machine a model and took out 100 conversations about actual conversations which solved the customer's question, and ran them through this model so that the model can clean up the data, clean up the noise, and get out actual questions and answers. So we have structured data. And but then, of course, there are then coming a lot of questions. So is it the best data, or is it the best question? Is it really related to the product? All of this can be, for example, as we show here, could be solved by community approach, right? So just have a like button. Is the information important enough? Is it helpful enough? So that's why the helpful score is there. So we can have 1,000 customers had a look at this FAQ, 10% or 5% gave it a thumbs up. So is it helpful? Yes. So pretty easy or not easy, but we, as I said in the disclaimer, we have to test that. That is one approach of maybe many, which we need to actually deploy to our platforms to try out. Hey, is the community, are our customers really liking such a feature and using such a feature? And are they able to determine if it is helpful for them? So there's a lot of aftermath after you have come up with such a solution. And just to bring across, I think for a lot of us, maybe in this room, conversations, is it chat, is it a ticket, is it an email conversation, are extremely, so gold, it is digging for gold for us, to be honest. So I want to emphasize that you can pretty easily get data out of that.
Thank you. Another super impressive use case. I think you literally bypassed, German or European GDPR rules by just doing the cleanup locally on your machine. And to be honest, I was thinking of Niels' comment in the session before, where he was talking about potentially deploying agentic AI to help customers find the right information. And I think what you did here is, let's say, step 0. You know, let's first extract the data. Let's just post it as FAQs. Let's figure out if the customers respond positively or not by adding the like button or maybe also dislike button or anything like that, to make sure that you have the relevant data, and then afterwards you could potentially even feed this into, let's say, a RAG model or anything like that, and deploy AI on it. Just looking at the time, there's a final topic that we also wanted to approach, the AI-accelerated developer productivity. When we talked, you had, let's say, some special opinion about this. Would you like to just elaborate on this one for a second?
Of course, yeah. You can, again, skip ahead a bit. So this was just explanatory for the chat, how we get data out of that. And yeah, some key takeaways I hopefully brought across with my explanation. Just to maybe briefly emphasize on why is such information extraction so important. It is not only important for the customer to have FAQs, but also for search engine. Search engines. It is super beneficial, and also, of course, for AI, because AI then trains on internet data, and also AI will crawl your page, or AI bots will go on your page, and if they find the question the user had, then AI will provide this question and answer to the client. And just to briefly talk about AI acceleration or accelerated productivity, as I mentioned, there are these two roads. There's the road for your personal productivity, and my own daily tasks and daily how I work, daily work process has been. Yeah, a lot of it has changed because of AI. So as I said, to pump out demos for my colleagues is super beneficial to me. I can validate extremely fast, and that also leads to bridging the gap between me and developers, because I'm also responsible for the pipeline to bring tickets or questions or issues from the business into pipeline and into the actual solution in the Spryker store and overall in the business. And for me is then the greatest thing about that is that I can also build something for the developers. And I know that, of course, the developer won't use my code because it's not the best, because it's AI, and you always need a human feedback loop in these code-generated things. But I can much more easily bring across my business case. I can much more easily approach the developer as well as the business person, and I can bring, my role is to bridge that, and this bridging is a lot easier for me because I can provide something to see. I can provide something to see the value, see the demo, see the interaction, like the chat or whatever, an overhaul, the data getting out of this Brazilian API I just mentioned. All of this is does not only accelerate me, myself, but also accelerates the whole process in approaching AI.
Thank you, Robert. Yeah, to wrap things up, we together agreed on a few key takeaways that we wanted to share with you here. Starting with the fact, just do it. It sounds awfully complicated often, but I can guarantee you there's probably a YouTube video for any kind of use case. So just get into using the tools. And the second one being start simple. You have seen he kind of bypassed a lot of the technical difficulties that we experience, or let's say compliance issues, by taking very pragmatic approaches. I think a lot of the use cases people have in their heads here can also start with a level 0 implementation, like you have done it here. So that's something to remember. And on the technical side, this was one learning from your side. Use prompt chains. Start a conversation with the AI. Do not use one-shot prompts. It will most likely not result in what you're expecting from the AI. Yeah, I think you told me using prompt chains increased the quality of the output from something like 70% to 95?
Yeah, 98, exactly.
98, yeah. Yeah, and I think we have still some time left for some questions. Otherwise, please approach.